morning?
I'm feeling really good. Thank you so much for having us, Helen, and good morning to your listeners.
Amazing stuff. Thank you for blessing our studios with this wonderful hair and the earrings. Hey. It's really giving. You know what the young people say? They say it's giving.
It's giving.
You don't know what it's giving, but it's giving something. So it is giving this morning. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
And now a friend of yours actually reached out to tell me about what it is that you do, and I was fascinated. So what she says is, hi, I've got a friend that I would love to recommend for womanpreneur. And if you're listening up and you know any woman in business doing something truly amazing, connect us so that we can learn a thing or two or about their specific business, and in fact just general business for the different sectors. So she says, my friend Penelope started a technical university that focuses on equipping the traditional handyman with better skills and business acumen needed to advance beyond the subpar standards of service in Ghana. Think of it as a big uni for technical skills. It's called ACTT. It's been operating for about a year now. And I think she's doing something amazing. So shout out, exactly. That's right. We all need friends like that. So Georgette, shout out to you for connecting me with Penelope and letting me know what it is that she does. So with this very nice foundation set, expand on that for us and tell us about the genesis. So as your friend mentioned, it's a year old that you've been doing this. Tell us why you started and how it all came about.
Thank you so much. I think I would like to quickly say that this is our very first radio interview in Ghana. So
we're very lucky then.
Helen and 3FM will be a very big part of our story. Thank you so much. So the story really began when I faced a period of unemployment after my first degree. So I graduated from KNUST in the 1% of my class, as part of the 1% of my class.
Amazing.
And yet it took me over a year and a half to get my very first job. And I pretty much applied for any legitimate job you can think of. So
wait, let's situate this. So after graduating from your first degree in the top 1% of your class, as a bright, energetic, fresh graduate, again, 1%, that's no easy feat. It took you a year and a half to land a job within the space that you wanted or something different.
It turned out to be a space I wasn't necessarily even looking at, and it turned out to be education. So, I mean, when you graduate, you have high hopes. I started off very pompous, I would say, as it still happens today. So I started off by applying for leadership programs, so like the Vodafones and Unilevers and co. I never got a single call. Then I went to like the banks for jobs as well. They invited all my colleagues that we were doing teaching assistantship with, and I never got invited as well. And then I became a bit more humble, went in for receptionist roles, administrative assistant.
Humble you.
Oh, and I still didn't get a single call. So the only legitimate and credible offer that I got for a job was to teach at Ashesi University. So they made me that offer, and that's pretty much changed my life. So that was the beginning of the story. But while I was actively looking for what I wanted to do with my life, I was supporting my mother with her businesses. She owned a school and she invested in real estate. So we started interfacing with artisans a lot. And I remember at the time we lived in a place in Kumasi called Breman. And before you get to Breman, there's Swami Magazine, where a lot of us Kumasi people will say Swami Magazine, which is like the Silicon Valley of mechanics in Kumasi.
I see.
And so it employed thousands of young people, but within an unstructured training environment. And we had just moved back from Amsterdam, so I could compare the standards and quality of training here to what was happening in Europe. And so I immediately realized that type of model could potentially really benefit Ghanaians. And that was the start of the journey. So I moved on from Ashesi, moved into industry, managed a bit of technology projects for public sector and private sector, focused more on operations management for a few years. And then last year in Q1, I resigned from my job to pursue ACTT full-time. And so, here we are. We've dedicated the rest of our lives to empowering young people and providing alternative pathways for young people to succeed. And so ACTT really is a modern vocational training institute, and I emphasize on modern a lot. We are leveraging technology to equip and certify artisans in Africa. But more importantly, as I said earlier, we really want to provide alternative pathways for young people to succeed. So these days, especially because of free SHS, about 500,000 people will graduate from senior high school every year. But you would realize that only about 110,000 will graduate from university. So that's just 20%. And that's simply because of capacity issues, because you could actually have money in your pocket, but you can't get into a typical university.
That's a reality.
That's a reality.
For graduates.
For graduates. So that means what happens to, that crop of over 400,000 people or so, what happens to them every year? So, with the introduction of services like Bolt, Uber, Jumia Food, if you have access to a bike or a car, you can enroll and then get employed, or some people start small business, etc. But then we need to have a structured way of managing people's pathways to succeed. And so that's really our story.
And that is it, really. Finding or spotting a problem and then looking to provide a solution to said problem. So wonderful idea. You've had your own challenges, as a fresh graduate. So you know what it's like, out there, no real structure. So practically, now that you've conceived of this idea, walk us through, how do you really get it off the ground? Because now it's a physical structure that has students in there. How does it go from idea to actual brick and mortar?
That's a very good question. I think, I will be honest, I'm not the first person to think of having such an institution, although we're handling it in a very innovative way. But a lot of people have ideas. When I first mentioned I wanted to do this, a lot of people, young and old, approached me and said, I face this issue with an artisan. I really wanted to do this. But I think what sets us apart is courage, one, and then, because the courage is what will make you make the next move, is what will make you translate the dreams and the plans and the aspirations into execution. But also, while you're executing, there's a lot of challenges that you face, and then you still need courage to keep going, to learn from your mistakes, all of that. So, we started with the usual, the documentation, the business plans, etc. And then we had to really define a very clear path to achieve that. And so with limited amount of resources, the first point is obviously to raise money, find startup capital.
How did you do that? I ask every single woman, Pranay, how are you the first person who's going to tell me you approached a bank? I haven't had that as yet.
No, I haven't approached a bank. I don't think it has even been an option for me.
It didn't even cross your mind.
At all.
My goodness, the banks and women preneurs are not friends at all. Is it because of the high interest rates, the inaccessibility, and collateral, all of that?
And also just, I started the business last year, and last year the economic environment was very fluctuating.
That's right.
So it would have been very deadly for me to commit to a dollar loan when things were going all over the place. So the one way we started, I had worked over the years for the past 8 years in industry.
So a bit of savings.
So I had a bit of savings.
Sure.
I had a couple $1,000s that were going to take us through for a bit. But having said that, the money that I had was not enough to build and operate the kind of institution that I want.
Sure.
So we approached institutions. I believe we sent a deck around 350 organizations in Ghana.
350. Womanpreneurs, are you listening to Penelope this morning? 350.
But here's the catch. We only probably received feedback from about 13 companies.
Oh, wow.
And so the support is also not that straightforward.
Okay.
But eventually we received grant funding from the United States, a family foundation. Shout out to Unorthodox Philanthropy. And that was the catalytic funding we received in May of this year, which changed our lives again, because it means our time to market has been 3 months. Between May and now, we've been able to set up all the necessary infrastructure, and we're admitting our first full-time cohort in October.
Okay, first full-time cohorts will be taking up the mantle in October of this year. Yeah. Amazing stuff. From an idea in somebody's head to now a tangible institution that you can see, and very soon we'll be getting the results from there. So for those who are interested in enrolling, what are the what do they need? What are the requirements for somebody that wants to involve themselves in a program like that?
So we believe that everyone deserves a chance to succeed, to get out of poverty, to earn a decent livelihood. And so we also don't believe that someone should go to school for 4 years and then end up being unemployed, because we're doing the same degrees all over again. So what we're doing is we are starting off with a 6-month certificate program in plumbing systems design. And it's open to junior high school graduates, senior high school graduates, university graduates, currently practicing artisans. It's open to organizations that have technicians and artisans that want them to be trained. So really, it's different models for different people.
Okay.
And we also have regular day classes, we have evening classes, and then we have weekend classes. So depending on whichever one that fits your schedule, you can sign up for the program.
And it's just one program at this time, the plumbing program.
Yes.
You go through it in 6 months. And what do you get after you've completed?
So our training model actually is we start with a foundation program. The foundation, we mean soft skills. So when you're working with an artisan, you notice that they make a lot of money, but they're always broke and you never understand why. So we want to teach financial management. We realize that a lot of them are also running their own small businesses. So we want to teach basic marketing, we want to teach customer service, we want to teach ethics, quality management, occupational health and safety. So that's what we do in the foundation program for a month. And then the next 4 months is when you focus on your technical specialization, which at this point is plumbing. And for that as well, we spend 40% of the time is theoretical, and then 60% of the training is actually practical hands-on training. We have a very well-equipped workshop where you can do all the practice that you need under supervision.
So who are these said supervisors? What are their qualifications?
We have a German master trainer, and then we have 3 local Ghanaian trainers as well. And they are engineers from industry. They've been doing this for a long time. Our German master trainer, he's written books that are used in Germany. He's developed curricula, all of that. And then finally, the last part of the training, the final 1 month, is we place you with a company in industry. So say construction, manufacturing, water and sanitation for industry apprenticeship. So you engage industry, you get a bit more experience. And then assuming all of that goes well, you get your certification, which is our certificate, and then a German certificate.
Now, for any budding womanpreneurs who think, I have a similar idea and I would love to also formalize some particular sector that probably needs more structure, what are the requirements? So you set up this institution. Who do you need to speak to? What are the accrediting bodies? What is it that you need to complete to get something like this off the ground?
That's a very good question. So for me, when I decided that I wanted to do this, the first thing I did was to speak with a lawyer. So I have a close friend who's currently representing my organization. And so he did the hard work of going through all the necessary regulatory requirements that we would have to go through. And so our regulating body is CTVET.
Okay.
And so for us, for example, we're in the process of completing our accreditation process. And so by the time that is done, we'll be able to award the national certificate as well, but that will be for an 18-month program.
Okay.
So that's how you navigate. I definitely think you should speak with a lawyer, because they always know where all the gaps are, who you should see, what you should do. So he sent me a long list of requirements, and then I knew then that, okay, I needed to register the business, I needed to get a fire service certificate, all of that. Pretty much that's how I went about it.
Very useful. And quite often my womanpreneurs will tell you seeking legal advice is very important. Formalizing what needs to be formalized, contracts, and so on and so forth.
And financial management as well.
Okay.
Like having financial advice in terms of every month filing your taxes, paying for SNIT, all of that. Because within our environment, you usually have to submit like a SNIT clearance certificate, a tax clearance certificate. So you always want to be making sure you're doing your books right, etc.
Absolutely. Well, it's 13 minutes to the top of the hour, 10 a.m. You're still live here on 3FM Sunrise on 3FM 92.7. It's another exciting installment of Womanpreneur. Penelope is here. She's telling us about the African Center for Technical Training. She's doing some truly wonderful and exciting things in this space. And honestly, this makes me very excited because I, here and there will engage artisans. And like you said, the money is always flowing, but you don't know, where exactly it's going. Yeah. So I think it's a step in the right direction, especially like you said, you have teeming youth who finished school and only 20% actually 20%. Move on to the next stage of going to university. I think this will definitely bridge or provide a bridge in this gap. Does the current economic state of affairs make you worried in this type of business? What would be the main concern, in terms of the financials? What are the pitfalls to look out for, especially when, interest rates, well, that doesn't really pertain to you, but exchange rates, for example, are going higa-haga. Tell us about the challenges.
I think what I would say is we're trying to, one of the key things that I wanted to achieve with ACTT was that this wasn't your typical sexy fintech startup. They scale really fast. It's very, fancy. Yeah. This is hard work that a lot of people don't like to do because you have to set up infrastructure, you have to hire people. The money doesn't turn around quite as fast. But we care more about impact. And so we're trying to demonstrate that, one, you can build a successful TVET organization or institute that is actually profitable and that is actually attracting exceptional and extraordinary talent, not just staff but also students. So for us, it's going to be a lot of hard work, which is what we'll do a lot of learning within this period. Once we admit the first cohort, we'll do a lot of learning. We made sure that our fees were current rates, so what they would typically pay to a local master in the neighborhood. So let's say you found a carpenter and you liked his work and you wanted to study with him, train with him for an apprenticeship. You pay about 2,500 cedis. You buy crates of eggs, beer, all of that. And we're basically just charging 3,500 cedis, but for better quality of training.
No
egg, no drama.
Sure,
you literally just show up to school and then do your training. And afterwards, we support you to transition to work. That's more important. So we're trying to keep the cost low, but the fees are also manageable. The important thing is that we want to scale the impact. We're not in here to,
You're here for the long haul.
We're in for the long haul, exactly. So, it'll be a learning curve. But for now, we're managing the challenges as they come.
Amazing stuff. Well, plug the socials for us. I know a lot of people are now very curious. They want to learn more, want to ask more questions. How do we find ACTT on the internet?
We kept that simple as well. So you can find us on Instagram, on TikTok, on Twitter as ACTT_EDU. ACTT_EDU.
All right.
And on Facebook and LinkedIn, you can find us and YouTube, you can find us as African Center for Technical Training. Yeah.
Amazing stuff. I've learned a lot this morning from Penny. She says, even after graduating in the top 1% of her class, she had to wait a whole year and a half. You said life will humble you.
Humble you.
And now it's an idea that has now formed into something tangible. So I know it's going to be an incredible year. Final words from you, Penny. Some advice also to womenpreneurs listening to you this morning who have a burning desire. Tell us something before we bid you farewell.
I think that we basically have to be action-oriented as people. There are a lot of problems that we're facing within our context in Ghana and in Africa that I think we have to get to the point where we're solving our own problems and we're producing what we consume. So whether that's products or service. So in Ghana, for example, I personally wouldn't understand why we import toothpick or we have to import tomatoes. I personally wouldn't get it.
Onions, everything we import, everything.
So I'm really, as a team, we're looking forward to getting to that point where even within our small community, we're changing the narrative. So like when you enter our administrative block, we have a writing there that says, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. And that's true. You might think the little thing you're doing in your corner is just, for you alone, or it can't do much. A lot of people complain about like what's happening in the economy, and they think they can't really contribute. But Ashesi changed my life, and that was just a dream, right? It's just Patrick Ewa one day sitting down to say, hey, I want to change how we deliver education in Africa. And that will be my words to everyone. Let's just be more action oriented.
Amazing stuff, Penny. We're certainly inspired this morning. My womanpreneur again was Penelope Brooke Thomson, CEO, founder, if you will, African Center for Technical Training. It's always amazing to interact with young women who have a passion, who have a vision, who want to make an impact. So we're very, very grateful. Of course, Womanpreneur comes your way every Tuesday, 9:30, and we're learning about women in business making an impact in Ghana and beyond.